1. Jon Stewart slams Paramount-Trump settlement as shameful. Steve Kroft calls it a shakedown. 2. CBS News settlement with Trump. What it means for journalism. 1. Jon Stewart slams Paramount-Trump settlement as shameful. Steve Kroft calls it a shakedown. Jon Stewart, the renowned host of The Daily Show, has not held back in expressing his disapproval regarding the recent multi-million-dollar settlement reached between Paramount Global, the parent company of Comedy Central, and former President Donald Trump. This settlement, which amounted to a staggering $16 million, was made to resolve a lawsuit that Trump filed against Paramount concerning the way a 60 Minutes interview with Kamala Harris was handled. Just 5 days after this payment was made, Stewart labeled the settlement as shameful during his show, even humorously suggesting that it was akin to a sandwich from Arby's, stating, "For when you want a sandwich commensurate with your company's shame." In the first half of the episode, which primarily focused on Trump's recent political maneuvers, Stewart invited former 60 Minutes correspondent Steve Kroft to delve deeper into the implications of this settlement. Kroft, a distinguished journalist with 3 Peabody Awards and 9 Emmy wins under his belt, spent an impressive 30 seasons on the show before departing in 2019. Upon introducing Kroft, Stewart described the settlement as unusual, prompting Kroft to reveal that some members of Congress have even suggested it could be viewed as bribery. Kroft expressed his concern that this situation has created a climate of fear among journalists at 60 Minutes, who are worried about job security, the state of a nation, and the potential erosion of First Amendment rights. After airing a clip of Trump on Fox News, Stewart posed a critical question. Why was the edit from 60 Minutes deemed worthy of a $16 million payout, especially when Fox News appears to have executed a more questionable edit? He challenged Paramount's decision-making process, asking why they chose to settle rather than contest the lawsuit. Kroft responded, clarifying that Paramount never admitted to any wrongdoing. They simply opted to pay the settlement. Stewart provocatively inquired if this was essentially protection money, to which Kroft affirmed, calling it a shakedown. The conversation took a more controversial turn as Stewart speculated whether this settlement was a strategic move by Paramount, which is currently in the process of being sold to Larry Ellison and his son David Ellison at Skydance. He questioned if the payment was made to ensure that the merger would proceed without interference from Trump's FCC. Kroft confirmed this notion, explaining that Sherry Redstone, the head of Paramount, is eager to finalize the sale, while Trump, feeling wronged by 60 Minutes, sought to retaliate through legal action. This situation raises significant questions about the intersection of media, politics, and corporate interests. Is this merely a case of a company trying to avoid conflict, or does it reflect deeper issues within the media landscape? What are your thoughts on this controversial settlement? Do you agree with Stewart and Kroft's assessments, or do you see it differently? Share your opinions in the comments. 2. CBS News settlement with Trump. What it means for journalism. Imagine a world where the media is forced to bow down to presidential pressure, and the truth is silenced by the threat of costly lawsuits. This is the stark reality that CBS News staffers are facing after Paramount Global, the parent company of CBS, settled a lawsuit with President Trump. The settlement has sparked widespread outrage, with many critics arguing that it sets a chilling precedent for press freedom. But here's where it gets even more concerning. This convoluted episode is not just about Paramount, but about the plaintiff, President Trump, and his relentless efforts to bully the media into submission. As veteran journalism professor Al Tompkins so aptly put it, it is odd to call this a settlement when the result of it is so unsettling. The fear among CBS News employees is palpable, with one staffer confiding to CNN that there's great fear about what comes next. And this is the part that most people miss. Trump's 60 Minutes lawsuit may be history, but his tactics will continue to challenge media companies for the foreseeable future. The question on everyone's mind is, will other newsrooms and organizations targeted by Trump choose to fight or fold? The Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression warned that behavior that gets rewarded gets repeated, and that this settlement will only embolden the president to continue his flurry of baseless lawsuits against the press. Rebecca Tushnet, The Frank Stanton professor of First Amendment law at Harvard Law School was scathing in her criticism of the settlement, calling it disappointing and arguing that the individual incentive in a budding authoritarian state is always to capitulate. She also pointed out that it's disappointing that so many of our institutions are folding, especially when individual citizens can see very clearly the dangers of this path. Former CBS News correspondent Armin Katayan echoed these sentiments, writing on X that this Paramount settlement is the nadir for the network, a breach of the public trust Murrow, Cronkite, Hewitt, and thousands of us worked decades to build. But here's the controversy. Some argue that Paramount's decision to settle was a pragmatic move to avoid a lengthy and costly lawsuit, while others see it as a spineless capitulation to Trump's bullying tactics. Democratic lawmakers, including Senator Elizabeth Warren and Senator Ron Wyden, have heaped criticism on Paramount, with Warren alleging that the settlement looks like bribery in plain sight. The bribery allegation stems from the fact that Paramount is trying to get the Trump administration to approve its pending merger with Skydance Media. Paramount insists that the settlement is not related to the FCC merger review process, but Trump has hinted that the two are connected. The terms of the settlement, which include a $16 million payout to Trump's presidential library, have been widely criticized as a permanent monument to Paramount's surrender. Jamil Jaffer, executive director of the Knight First Amendment Institute at Columbia University, remarked that Trump's presidential library will be a permanent monument to Paramount's surrender. Other press freedom advocates have called the settlement a shameful and spineless capitulation. But what does this mean for the future of press freedom? Will other media companies be intimidated into settling with Trump, or will they choose to fight back? As Paul Farhi, a veteran media reporter, pointed out on X, it's fascinating how Paramount has borne the bulk of the criticism for agreeing to this payoff, as if Trump is a passive bystander who played no role. The Wall Street Journal's conservative editorial board was sharply critical of Trump's conduct, writing that the president is using government to intimidate news outlets that publish stories he doesn't like. So, we have to ask, what's next for the media, and how will they respond to Trump's continued attacks on press freedom? Will they choose to stand up for the truth, or will they cave to pressure? The answer to this question will have far-reaching implications for the future of journalism and the health of our democracy. As Al Tompkins so eloquently put it, this settlement is not a reflection on the essential and bold work of 60 Minutes of CBS. It is a reflection of a vindictive president and corporate heads who did not value one of the fundamental principles that underpin the ownership of a news organization. That principle, he said, is stated as the second tenet of the Society of Professional Journalists Code of Ethics. Act independently. So, we want to hear from you. Do you think Paramount made the right decision in settling with Trump? Or was it a mistake? Should media companies stand up to Trump's bullying tactics? Or is it better to settle and avoid a costly lawsuit? Let us know in the comments.